Reigns ambushed on Raw. Fatu attacks Reigns. Roman caught backstage. Raw goes chaotic. Was Reigns set up? Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. What if Roman Reigns didn't just get ambushed backstage on Raw, but someone actually planned the whole thing from the shadows? And what if Jacob Fatu wasn't acting alone like everyone assumes, but was just the visible part of something much bigger? Because the more you replay what happened that night, the less it starts to feel like a random attack and the more it feels like a message, one written in violence and sent directly to the tribal chief himself. And honestly, the way it all went down, his fans asking questions WWE clearly didn't want answered too quickly. Raw starts off like any other chaotic night, but there's that familiar tension hanging in the air the moment Roman Reigns shows up, because whenever Roman enters a building, everything shifts, conversations get quieter, people start watching him instead of the ring, and you can tell he knows it too. He walks like a man who already believes the night belongs to him, like he's not just part of the show, he is the show. But there's something slightly different this time, a subtle unease, small glances backstage, the kind of details you only notice if you're paying attention, like Roman is aware that something isn't adding up but he can't quite put his finger on it yet, and that alone is enough to make fans start overthinking everything, because wrestling fans never just watch, they investigate, they analyze, they turn every stare into a theory and every silence into a conspiracy, and then Jacob Fatu enters the picture and everything escalates without warning. Jacob Fatu doesn't even need a dramatic introduction anymore, he feels like an event by himself, like a storm that shows up whether you're ready or not, and every time he appears it feels less like entertainment and more like containment failure, like WWE is trying to keep a monster inside the system and failing in real time, and the scary part is he doesn't rush or panic, he just exists in that space like pressure building up right before something breaks, and fans can feel it too. You can hear it in commentary voices shifting slightly whenever he's mentioned, because there's a difference between a wrestler and a problem, and Jacob Fatu is starting to feel like the second one. Throughout the night, Roman continues moving through segments, but there's a strange rhythm to everything, like pieces of the puzzle are being quietly placed without anyone explaining what the picture is supposed to be, and WWE does this thing where they don't tell you something is important, they just keep showing it until your brain starts screaming that it matters. And Roman being slightly more isolated than usual is one of those details, no wise men constantly nearby, fewer allies around him. Moments where he's just walking alone backstage, and that's where the unease starts turning into anticipation, because if wrestling has taught us anything, it's that isolation in a backstage hallway is never random, it's always the calm right before something goes wrong. And then it happens. Roman is walking backstage, tension still in his face from earlier in the night, shoulders tight, eyes focused forward. And for a second everything feels normal, almost too normal, like the show is pretending nothing is about to happen, and then Jacob Fatu explodes into frame, not walking, not running, but launching himself into Roman like a human wrecking ball, and the impact is immediate, violent, chaotic. Roman gets slammed into production equipment, cases shift, people shout, security reacts late like they always do in these situations, and Jacob doesn't hesitate for even a second, he just keeps going, like once the switch flips there's no turning it off. And what makes this moment hit differently is that Roman Reigns, the same man who has stood across from legends, monsters, champions, and entire factions, actually looks caught off guard, not weak, not defeated, but genuinely surprised for a split second, and in Roman Reigns' world, that split second is everything. Jacob continues the assault with a level of intensity that doesn't feel like a normal wrestling attack, it feels personal, like anger mixed with intent, like something beyond just storyline aggression, and the camera doesn't cut away quickly. It lingers just enough for fans to feel uncomfortable, for the chaos to settle into memory, for people to rewind and rewatch and ask why this felt so different. And then comes the moment that sticks, Jacob standing over Roman breathing heavily while officials finally start pulling him away, and the expression on his face isn't pure rage, it's something calmer, almost controlled, like he believes this was necessary, and that's the detail that changes everything, because anger is predictable, but conviction is not. And when someone like Jacob Fatu looks convinced rather than just angry, the entire dynamic shifts. Roman is eventually helped up, but the damage isn't just physical, it's psychological, because Roman Reigns is not used to being the one caught off guard, he's not used to being the one out of position, and you can see it in his eyes that this isn't just about pain, it's about disrespect, about control slipping for even a moment, and for a character built on dominance and authority, that moment matters more than anything else that happened on Raw. Meanwhile, commentary starts treating Jacob Fatu differently too, not like a wildcard anymore, but like a legitimate threat to Roman's entire structure, and that shift is important because WWE commentary usually reflects direction, not just reaction, so when they start framing someone as a major danger to Roman Reigns, it usually means the story is escalating into something bigger. And that's where the internet completely loses it, because fans immediately start dissecting everything, asking why Roman was alone, why security was slow, why cameras were already positioned perfectly, why the timing felt too clean, like a setup rather than an accident, and suddenly the conversation stops being about a backstage attack and starts becoming about orchestration, about intent, about whether Jacob Fatu was really acting independently or just carrying out a decision made somewhere else. And honestly, that question isn't crazy in the context of WWE storytelling, especially when you're dealing with bloodline-related narratives, because nothing in that world ever stays simple, every alliance eventually cracks, every loyalty eventually gets tested, and every attack eventually connects back to power. What makes this even more interesting is how Roman reacts afterward, because he doesn't explode immediately, he doesn't launch into a dramatic speech right away, he just sits in that moment of frustration and disbelief, and that silence is louder than any promo, because Roman Reigns angry is one thing, but Roman Reigns quiet after being embarrassed is something else entirely. That's the version of him that starts thinking instead of reacting, and that usually leads to consequences. Fans immediately start predicting retaliation, because history tells us Roman doesn't let moments like this sit unresolved, especially not when it happens in front of everyone, especially not when it involves someone who just made him look vulnerable on his own show, and that's where the anticipation for next week explodes, because now it's not just about what Jacob Fatu did, it's about what Roman Reigns will do in response. But there's another layer people are starting to talk about, and it's the possibility that Jacob didn't actually have to destroy Roman completely to achieve his goal, because the attack itself felt controlled in a strange way, like he had more opportunities to cause permanent damage but chose not to fully go there, and that raises a darker question: what if the point wasn't to end Roman, but to humiliate him, to send a message, to shift perception rather than erase him, because psychological damage lasts longer than physical damage in wrestling storytelling, and Jacob Fatu might be operating on that level now. And if that's true, then the entire dynamic of this story changes again, because now it's not just violence, it's strategy, and that makes Jacob even more dangerous than fans initially thought. Meanwhile, backstage reactions after the segment only add fuel to the fire, because some superstars look genuinely shocked, others look suspiciously calm, and wrestling fans being wrestling fans immediately read meaning into every facial expression, every pause, every glance, because in WWE nothing is ever just background noise to them, everything is a clue. And the biggest question now hanging over everything is simple but terrifying: who benefits from Roman Reigns being attacked like this? Because in a system built around dominance, the moment the top of the hierarchy shows vulnerability, everyone underneath starts recalculating their position, and that's how chaos begins in bloodline stories, not with explosions, but with doubt. Jacob Fatu thrives in that chaos. He doesn't look like someone chasing titles or approval, he looks like someone who exists to disrupt structure itself, and WWE has rarely positioned someone this way in relation to Roman Reigns in such a direct, physical, and psychological sense at the same time, which is why this feels like more than just another Raw segment. It feels like the start of something that will ripple across everything Roman is involved in. And the final question fans are left sitting with is the one nobody can answer yet: was this just a warning shot, or was it the first strike in a war that Roman Reigns didn't see coming until it already started? Either way, one thing is certain: things are not going back to normal anytime soon, and if Roman decides to respond the way he usually does, then Jacob Fatu might have just turned a backstage ambush into a full-scale war inside WWE, and honestly, that's exactly why everyone will be